If you're in the areas around the hospital and university and basically like downtown, like right down Main Street where all the big commercial buildings are at, if you're in those areas there, you've got a good chance of doing very well. But there's still older homes when you go downtown Moncton because that's where the oldest parts of Moncton is.
Hi there, my name is Lynn.
My name is Martin May. Together, we run New Brunswick property deals where we connect savvy investors, both local and from out of province, to off market properties with amazing cash flowing potential.
So, whether you are a first time homebuyer or an experienced investor, we can find you your next investment property here in New Brunswick.
Well, you already kind of touched on the different neighborhoods, but obviously in Central Moncton, we're targeting a lot of young professionals, students, hospital workers, and call center workers. Whereas
Yeah,
the north is a lot more family friendly. We're seeing a lot of semi-detached buildings
correct.
that are a lot newer. So,
Yeah.
would you characterize some of the common problems with different neighborhoods when it comes to building?
Like now, there's a lot of things that change in the code. Like if the buildings are too close to one another, before they could go with vinyl siding. Now they can't because they got to have this fire separation. So they got to put some non-combustible materials on the outside when the buildings are too close to one another. So that's been enforced now. Um, if you're in the areas around the hospital and university and basically like downtown, like right down Main Street where all the big commercial buildings are at, if you're in those areas there, you've got a good chance of doing very well. But there's still older homes when you go downtown Moncton because that's where the oldest parts of Moncton is. So if you do get into century homes, you just got to, it's like any other big city though, really. You have to worry about knob and tube, you have to worry about aluminum wiring, you have to worry about asbestos, poor windows where they're not egress and they're not basically weather sealed like with argon and all that stuff, right? So they're not so you got to be prepared to change some windows, you got to be prepared to change some siding and just make sure that the siding's not going to be cheap vinyl anymore. They're going to make you pay for more, like materials that cost more. And right now with shortages, it's already doubled on pricing on most of the materials. So be prepared for some major budgets when you do renovations now, especially if you do that. Um, and then you got your older century homes that some of them have been fixed. So if you buy one like that, that's already been updated. If you got new wiring, new plumbing already put into them and stuff like that, then it's you got to be asking a little bit more for it. But if that's just cosmetic flips, then you can go forward and do that if you want. But if you got something that's really run down, just be ready to like with foundation issues, roof issues, structural issues. Back in the century homes, it wasn't built like today where a wall, the floor sits on top of a wall. It was what they call a balloon frame. So if it's a balloon frame, that means the floor is attached to the wall. It's not sitting on top of a wall. So that's why you usually see those more crooked. And if you have to fix that, that can be a very costly job. So you got to be prepared for that stuff. Just make sure that if you do see something old, check the foundation. If it's a stone foundation, chances are that it's pretty darn old and there's probably rats coming in and there's holes everywhere and it's not a dry basement. And to do conversion with those, it's not the best. If you got concrete foundation, those are better. If you have blocks, cinder block foundations, those are mostly the ones going to be failing at some point. They're going to crack and they start caving in. That was a poor design, whoever came up with that kind of foundation, but it was a cheap way back in the days. And, because when you come back from World War II, we had a big recession at that time. And then when that happened, there's a lot of people that chose the cheap way to do because nobody had money back then. So they did what they did to survive. So I don't hold it against them. It's just that it's making it hard for investors today to get into these older homes where you got to bring it back to code, right? Um, there are different eras, different generations in homes. So that makes a huge difference. Me personally, I prefer buying properties over 1960 and newer because they're built with new building codes. You know what I mean? You might still have 2x4 outside construction versus 2x6 for the insulation, right? So, but they're still built the way they're built today, right? So you're starting to get a better product. There's less chance of getting knob and tube. Actually, there's no chance to get knob and tube in 1960. Then you got back the aluminum wire and they went up to the 70s. So you got to be careful from 60s to 70s in the homes for the aluminum wiring. They might have cheated some after that, people, because aluminum's cheaper than copper, right? So they might have still cheated, but they're not the ones that pulled permits. It's the ones that usually do their own work and they try to save money and they just make it worse for properties. I found most properties, most problems that you get for properties because homeowners try to do their own work because they think they can do it and they just butcher their houses. Yeah, like I had a story where I had a house before when they went and they cut the beam because they want to make a pass through. And when they cut the beam, they left like maybe 1 inch of wood on top of it. And it was like a 10-foot span, 12-foot span, something like that. And they didn't notice it right away when they cut it. They noticed that it starts sagging a little bit, but they just, they thought they built another wall around the other ends of both sides of the beam. But what happened is that the two-story home started imploding downwards towards the basement.
Wow.
So that whole house was destroyed because everything caved in. They
Right.
were lucky they weren't in the house when it happened, right?
Right.
So destroying the structural beam wall or a bearing wall is not a smart idea.
Definitely.
A lot of weight there, right? So it's just things that homeowners do that they don't know that how it actually works, right? It's not just putting a 2x4 together and putting a nail to it and it's going to hold together, right? There's a lot more science behind what the construction trade does. So we see a lot of those properties. Even the newer ones, you'll see that homeowners try to do their own thing. They don't frame the walls right. They're all crooked. And, you're trying to put drywall on the wall that's got a stud that's going like this, and the other one's further up, and the other one's further back. Well, it's going to make a wavy wall, right? So there's a lot of that going on here in Moncton, but I think it's not just Moncton. I think it's pretty much anywhere because I just had some of those in the States too. So it's not just, so there's a lot of that stuff you got to look out for. I mean, just be careful with anything with plaster. It's usually older, so you got to be let's prepare for plaster. Is a lot more labor intense to do demo for than if it was just drywall or paneling, right? So these are other things you got to look out for. Electrical, make sure that you have, like on the older homes, you'll see there's only two prongs on the plugs. That means most of the wiring doesn't have grounds. So today that's affecting some of the electrical stuff in today's world. Um, Asbestos, you'll see it mostly in siding, into insulation, duct ventilation pipes. So make sure to look for that if you do see it. The tiles of floors used to be asbestos as well, the 9 inch by 9 inch, they're black. If you see those are usually a bad sign.
Mm.
Now, these things are not bad if not disturbed, but the minute you disturb them, that's when it gets poisonous, right? You got these spores going in the air and this whatnot. So when I first started construction, I was doing university jobs and stuff like that. And there was a lot of asbestos in them. And back then it wasn't a big thing. I used to just go away and smash away in asbestos all day long. And
Oh
my
man.
teeth were black because of you know what I mean? Like I was pretty much eating this stuff. It didn't kill me yet, so I'm still healthy. So, so it's not the end of the world, but then they realized it was doing some lungs issues, right? So then they start making a big thing about it, right? But again, if it's not disturbed, it's not going to hurt anybody. But it's just that people see asbestos and mold and they all panic, right? They all think it's a big, oh no, that's bad. It's going to cost us $1 million to fix this house, but most times it's only a couple $1,000 and you can have it fixed. I mean, if it's insulation in the attic, sometimes you can have that rechanged back for some $8,000, depending on how big the house is, right? So
Sure.
it's just that people like overreact sometimes with that when they get the inspection report when an inspector, and so this
So I
is
guess like the best way for out of province investors to get a good feeling of the house will be through an inspection, right? Like that would be probably those.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you can have, it's nice to do virtual, but it's still nice to have someone go out there and actually look at the property physically because pictures can be deceiving. I've seen a lot of properties where I love the pictures when I see it, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get this one. The price is great. And when I actually get there, it's like, oh my God, you don't really see that in pictures. Like when you really look up close, and it's like, oh my God, look at the floors. Like, well, like didn't really catch that on the picture. And the wiring, you can't tell the wiring from pictures. You can't tell. There's a lot of things that you miss just by pictures, right? Even that Matterport you guys did is great to look. You can see the layout. You can see where you're going. I think that's fantastic. But if you don't go and see the physical property yourself, there could be some other things that you can't see, right? And when you get to another project, you also got to know also whether you're going to go like with a hack, which would be non-conforming, versus a legalized. Just prepare to pay almost double what you would pay for an unlegal to legal, um, because there's a lot more things with engineers and drawings and basically permits and all that stuff. So that's a whole new job that can take time to do a project. Just like that anywhere, it's like anywhere, whether it be Ontario or BC or New Brunswick, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing.